ज्ञानतिमिरन्धस्य ज्ञानाञ्जनशलाकया चक्षुरुन्मिलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरुवे नमः तव करकमलवरेणाकम् अद्भुतसिंहाम् दलिता हिरण्यकशिपो तानुभृङ्गम् केशवधृता नरहरिरूपा जय जगदीश रे जय जगदीश रे जय जगदीश रे. Okay, welcome everybody. Good to have you here. How's everybody doing tonight? You okay? We're winding down. We only have 2 nights left. Hard to believe. Yeah. But here we are. Let's live in the moment. It's our question and answer session that we have every night. And would someone like to begin tonight by bringing forth a question? Simply have to raise your hand and we get started. Don't be shy. This is dependent on all of you. Yes, sir.
Yes, the microphone. Oh, hey.
Hey, how are you? How are you? Namaste. Namaste. This way? This way. This way. Hello? Yeah. Hi. Namaste. I'm Aditya. And I'm not sure what topics are covered, but I'd like to ask you if what's the easiest way to, or what works for you, sir, how to remain present or remain in the present?
How to remain in the present. You know, there's the question of time is a difficult idea for us to understand. It's something hard to wrap the mind around. The idea that we're living in a realm where there is a force called time. And, you know, when we speak of time, commonly we think of measurements, minutes and hours and days, etc. But the way that the yogis or the philosophers think of time is more as a force. It's a force that's moving everything. It's a force that's shifting everything. You could say aging everything, ultimately destroying everything. Anything that's composed of matter is subject to this law. Our bodies, our homes, the bodies of our loved ones, all of this is, time is working on it. Time is, if it wasn't for that, we might think we could find ourselves a comfortable place in this world. But whatever we get, even if we work hard and we get what we're after, there's this law of time, and it's taking it away. So what the sacred texts are telling us is that law is not our natural circumstance. It's not actually the environment that we're meant to operate in. That we are made of spirit, and spirit is something that's beyond time. So by nature, we are beyond time. But the thing is, we, the spirit, tend to identify with the mind and the body. And so therefore, we experience time as if we are subject to its laws, as if we are bound by it. If we could realize our own nature, we could transcend that law of time. And one way to practice that is just by focusing on that which is spiritual, focusing on that which is beyond time. For instance, this mantra, Hare Krishna mantra, this is spiritual sound. It's beyond the law of time. It has always existed. It will always exist. And if you bring your mind to it, then you're bringing your mind beyond the realm of time. Krishna's leelas, these are eternal. They're beyond time. We might think, oh, they happened at one point in time and then they were finished and they're done. No, they actually exist eternally. One could enter them right now if one had the right disposition and the right blessing. One could enter them right now. So if you bring your mind to that which is spiritual, there's a verse in the Srimad Bhagavatam. Ayur harati vai pungsa Ujjan astang chayanaso. It's saying that as with the rising and the setting of the sun every day, everybody's life is drawing down. It's becoming shorter, except for those who are absorbed in hearing the pastimes of the Supreme. So interesting, right? In other words, we can choose to operate on the spiritual level. Now, our bodies are going to age still, but we will be beyond our bodies. You know, what could be more, I don't know, depressing, fearful than the idea that we're aging, that we're growing old, that what we used to be able to do, we will not be able to do anymore. That we're going to become weaker physically. That the ways that we used to find pleasures through food, through sex, through adventurous activity, our body will not be able to sustain that, right? As well as all those around us. It can be a very depressing idea. People are doing what they can to try to maintain their youth, but it's a hopeless. People are doing what they can to try to maintain their youth, but actually it's a hopeless endeavor. You know, I'm from the United States. When you go to a grocery store in the United States and you're standing in line to purchase your food, then there's like a bunch of magazines there that they're encouraging you to buy. Especially they're aimed at the lady shoppers, and these magazines, they always have the same headline like every month in one form or another, like, you know, how to keep your sex life very, very spicy and exciting. You know, 3 tips for keeping things exciting in the bedroom and things like this. We're not meant to be feeling anxiety about this. You know, we're not meant to be fighting the laws of nature like this. We're much better off accepting, yeah, we all grow old. And we can learn that the pleasures that we enjoyed in our youth, we're not meant to enjoy them for our whole life. We can fight against that, but we'll never succeed. What we need to find is we need to go within and come in touch with the self. This is where we're going to find something far more satisfying, something far more exciting. We need to learn to let go of all that. And as our body ages, it's natural for us to let go, right? If there's some higher taste, padam dristva nirvartate, Bhagavad Gita speaks like this. We can let go of these external things when we're tasting something higher. So tasting that higher thing is a way to go beyond time, right? And you know, there are ways when people practice meditation, for instance. Generally, you sit still. I mean, these are let's say, just practical tips, you know, like people they do, right? You sit down, you sit straight, you keep your body still, right? Even people do things like they'll put a book on top of their head so that their body's not moving. You try to sit very still, let your body be still. And then you close your eyes, you focus your mind on your breath, on every inhale and exhale. Sometimes you focus your mind on your breath, like right here at the nostrils where it's coming in. Then you move it and you focus your mind on your breath here in the throat area. Then you move it and you feel it here in the chest area. Then you bring your mind, but you're keeping your mind on your breath here, your breath there. And while you're doing that, what it does, this is a practical thing, but it brings your mind to your breath in the moment. And you begin to forget about what was happening earlier in the day. All the different things you regret about how things went or how you wish they would have been different. You forget about the future, all the things you fear, how things may or may not go. You let go of past, you let go of future, and you enter into the moment. Right? A little consciousness of that, a little breathing, a little internal, let me let go of the past, let me let go of the future, let me focus right here. Then you need something to focus on. So in the Bhakti tradition, it's generally the name, like in the form of these mantras, the names of the absolute truth, the forms. Sometimes you go in the temple, you can see the form, you can meditate on it in your mind. Name, form, qualities of the Supreme, pastimes, the leelas of the Supreme. These become, you bring your mind to that spiritual, timeless energy, and you'll be living in the moment. We need to learn to live in that moment a lot more than we do. Usually we're almost always in the past or always in the future in our mind. Let it go. You know, the more that we feel that connection to God, God is right there in the heart of every living being at every moment. we tend to be completely aloof from it. We tend to be completely ignoring it, completely unaware of it. The yogis, they go up into these hills. They sit alone in caves. They practice self-discipline so that they can experience God within their own hearts, right? We can know that God in our own heart. We can speak to God in our own heart. We can feel that. And we can become fearless, fearless of the effects of time on us, because we realize I'm connected to something that's timeless. So try to connect to the timeless. Try to spend time connected to the timeless. Try to mark off moments in your day where you're in that timeless space. Try to mark off spaces within your week, within your month, within your year, where you exist exclusively in that space. And then you'll feel that all the time, even when you're operating in this world and doing the worldly duties that you have to do, you're running on two tracks. One track is this world, and this world of time, and the things that need to be done, and they need to be done today, and if they don't, then they're going to create problems tomorrow. Responsibilities that you have, people that you need to care for. You take care of that. You're operating on that within this realm of time, but always, as you move through it, there's another channel, there's another rail that you're working on, and that's the eternal time, your spiritual identity. Not the function that you're playing right now, but the foundation of who you really are. You stay in touch with that at all times. And you get there by practicing daily, living in that space. People do that through chanting the mantra. People do that through being in the Kirtan. People do that through reading the Shastra and reflecting on it. You keep that steady sadhana going on for a certain part of the day, and gradually it starts to expand and take over your day. And so even though you're taking care of your worldly business, you're living in that timeless space as well. Is that okay? Thank you. Good question to get us started. I appreciate it. Wow, we got a lot of people here today. How's everybody feeling? Everybody with us? Yes? Let's live in the moment. What's the next question? Anyone? Eager to hear what you have to share. One question. Anyone? Even people in line for the food there. We can take questions from all of you. Yes. Yes. Welcome back.
Okay. Thank you. I was just in the mountains, and while I was doing my japa one morning in a local house, the gentleman host asked me about what I was doing. And I just described it as mantra meditation, and he asked what lineage, and I didn't know how to answer. I made a general expression. I'm new to this. I made a general expression, Hare Krishna, and he said ISKCON. But is there a better answer I could have given?
Well, but in one sense, either of those could do. But if someone's in the know. But he asked you what lineage. Yeah. So that question. In other words, okay, where you're chanting a particular mantra. These mantras are handed down in lineages called sampradayas. And so he's asking you, okay, you received a mantra. In what lineage did you receive the mantra? I think is essentially what he's asking. And the idea is here that in Vedanta, you have especially 4 different bhakti lineages that come down. And one of them is from a great acharya, a great teacher named Madhva, comes through Madhva. He establishes really important teachings. And that lineage continues to come down over the centuries until Chaitanya appears in it. So Chaitanya in this lineage is accepted as Sri Krishna himself. So in one sense, although he's appearing in the middle of the lineage, you could say he's the beginning of it as well. So another term you could have said was Chaitanya. But the most official way would be to say the Gaudiya Sampradaya. The Gaudiya refers to, it's a geographical term referring to the area where Sri Chaitanya was from and where his teachings really spread. So it's called Gaudiya Vaishnavism. The type of Vishnu worship or Krishna worship originating in this Gaudiya area. So Gaudiya Vaishnavism, Chaitanya Vaishnavism, Chaitanya, any of these would have worked. But Hare Krishna kind of also indicates that as well. So any of those would have been fine. Thank you. He's the one that took a Vedic mantra, the Maha mantra, the Hare Krishna mantra, and said, let's chant this to find the love, the prema of Radha and Krishna, to understand that and feel something of that ourselves, awaken a similar type of love through this Maha mantra. He's the one who, you could say, prescribed that. So even the chanting of that mantra became emphasized. You see, if it was chanting of Maha mantra, he said, what Sampradaya? In one sense, it makes most sense to say Chaitanya. Because previous in the Sampradaya, this mantra wasn't so prominent. It was Sri Chaitanya that really reached into the Veda, into the Upanishads and pulled out this mantra and said, here, this, meditate on this. So that really, the mantra was always there, but he's the one that really prescribed it as the path for this yuga, this age that we're in. Thank you. All right, everybody. Ready for the next question. Yes, in the back.
My question is like, how do we connect with everyone at the same level as we are able to connect with Krishna? You know, when we are there in Hare Krishna Kirtan, we are connected with everyone. But as soon as we get out of that place, even though mentally we try so hard, we are doing our mantras and sadhana, but still it's very hard to connect with everyone. Fear comes a lot of the times, and so many our perceptions, our old ideas comes, and that grab our attention, and then that connection kind of we lose it. So how to keep it on all the time, like 24 hours? Thank you.
Well, what you're describing is really the vision that the yogi has. So you're saying we understand something. We understand something of this truth, that within every living being there is a spark of spirit, the spiritual energy. That's what we all are. We have different costumes that we're wearing. We have male costumes, female costumes, black costumes, white costumes, Indian costumes. We have human costumes. We have animal costumes, even plant costumes. The same quality of spirit within all of them. And when we have like Kirtan is the best way for entering into that vision of unity, where everybody's vibrating on the same vibration, everybody's moving on the same vibration, and transcending all of the external bodily borders that tend to enter our awareness when we're not in the Kirtan. Srila Prabhupada used to say, even a child can take part in the Kirtan, even a dog can take part. And we've seen this, right? So the mantra and the music have a power that can bring everyone onto that same level. And we do experience it so much in this Kirtan. How do we maintain that kind of vision? How do we have that? It's called, in Bhagavad Gita, it's called Samadarshana, seeing the sameness in everyone. Right? Darshana means to see or vision. Sama means the sameness or evenness. So that regardless of the body of a different living being, I can understand that there's the same person underneath it all. In the 15th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna talks about this. He says that we're all moving through these different bodies according to our karma. When the body passes away, the soul moves on. It takes the mind with it, and then it takes on another body shaped around the shape of the mind. According to the consciousness, it takes on the next body. And then Krishna says, those who have the jnāna chakshusa, those who have the eyes of knowledge, they can see this. Others try and they can't see it, right? So see it doesn't necessarily mean that they're actually seeing like a soul leave a body. The soul is invisible. You can't see it with these eyes. But in other words, they're understanding how we're moving through these bodies. They're understanding that how we're all shifting. You know, imagine if we lived in a world where everybody drove one car today, and rather than keep it and own that car, you had to switch cars the next day and everybody traded. And so we're constantly moving these from one car to a next. You would stop judging people based on the car they drive because you would understand that we're all switching cars every day, right? So I'm driving this car today, but I can't be proud of it or I can't be embarrassed about it because we're all just switching cars, and tomorrow someone else will be driving this car and I'll be driving a different one. The yogis have become convinced of this. And so they're like, yeah, I'm a man today, but I was a woman in my previous life and I may be in my next, right? You know, I'm black in this life, but I might be white in my next, or I might have been white in my past one. I may be Indian in this life, but I might be Chinese in my next one. I might be human in this life, but I'm likely was an animal in a previous one, and I likely will be one in the next. So we're all shifting. So now when we start to embrace that idea, we stop judging people based on the body, relating to people based on the body. We get this samadarshana. But how do we get there? This is the practice of yoga. But you have to make it your priority. You have to want it. You have to want it more than you want other things. You know, I want to have that vision, and I also want to have a nice job. I want to make this much money. I want to have this, you know, and I want this, I want that, I want that. These other things can easily steal our bandwidth, steal our energy, and so that it becomes less focused. Really, and it's not that we need to walk away from a job or need to walk away from a home, but we need to begin to see our job and see our home and see our relationships, see our responsibilities, see all of it in relation to uncovering this vision, right? I'm going to work, but I'm reflecting on the jnāna that I received when I was reading the Bhagavad Gita this morning. I have to reflect. You hear it, and then you reflect on it. Right? So reflection means I'm going to work today, right? It may be a good day of work, like I may make a lot of money, I may not make so much money, but either way, I'm going to keep an even mind. Some people may be kind to me today, they may be respectful to me. Maybe other people will not be so respectful. Maybe some people will be disrespectful. Maybe some people will be rude, not so nice to me. How will I respond? Will I feel insulted? Will I lash back? Or will I reflect on the knowledge that I've received in the Bhagavad Gita today? Will I reflect on the idea that underneath this hostile behavior, there's a spark of spiritual energy as pure as any other spark in this world. And the hostility that's coming out is coming out through a mind that's been warped by their experience. It's the mind that's programmed as hostile, but the soul itself is pure and sweet, right? If I respond with hostility towards that hostility, I'm operating on that external platform. But if I reach down to the heart and realize I'm spirit, this is spirit, and I respond on that level, even if hostility comes at me, I respond with kindness, right? Now, not only am I reflecting on what I've heard in these sacred texts, but I'm acting on it. This is going to reinforce this idea. This is how theoretical knowledge matures into realized knowledge. Theoretical knowledge is called jñāna. Realized knowledge is called vijñāna. It's almost like saying real knowledge, true knowledge, or in English we might call it wisdom, right? It's one thing to know theoretically that we're all spirit, but it's another thing to move through the world, in a sense, seeing it all the time. Seeing it means naturally responding, spontaneously responding to spirit wherever I see it. So it has to become our priority. We have to hear about it. We have to reflect on that knowledge and apply it steadily, day after day. And we also need blessings for that too. So that blessing should become really important to us. I want to please God. I want to please those that are dear to God. I want to receive the blessings of those who have this vision. I need to associate with those that have it, and I need to behave with them in such a way that I might receive their blessings. You know, Krishna talks about the descent of jnana, how one receives it, in the 4th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita. He says, Tadvati pranipatena pariprashnena sevaya upadekshanti te jnanam jñāninas tattvadarshina. Jñāninas tattvadarshina, these seers of the truth, they can share that truth with you. Tadvati pranipatena, approach a master, approach someone who has this kind of vision. Tadvati pranipatena pariprashnena sevaya. Inquire from them with the right mood. Inquire from them with a respectful mood. And then it says, and sevaya, and serve them. Right? He's saying it's not merely an academic endeavor to learn something, learn a piece of knowledge, but it's actually receiving a blessing that you open up to when your heart is open to it. And one way to open that heart is to serve that person, right? They've seen the truth. They can share this knowledge, this vision with you because they've seen it. And would you like to hear how that's described by Krishna? What it is that you receive? He says, this is the next verse, 435 in the Bhagavad Gita. Having obtained real knowledge from a self-realized soul, you will never fall again into such illusion. Bodily discernment, that kind of illusion, right? Hostility, and so on. You will never fall again into such illusion, for by this knowledge you will see that all living beings are but a part of the Supreme, or in other words, that they are mine. So this is the key, that we see everything as connected to the Supreme, as connected to God, as connected to Krishna. Just like when we look at a tree, we see so many leaves. We might not see the root, although we know the root is there, because there's no way that the leaves could be maintained if the root wasn't there. And the one root system, it maintains all the leaves, right? So, and those leaves are all of similar quality, and every one of them is connected. None of them is disconnected from that root. And so the yoga is seeing every living being as like a leaf, all of them connected to God as the root, right? By meditating on God, they meditate on the root. By learning to love God, they learn to love everything connected to God, every leaf on the tree. And so this is your question is a most excellent question. But the answer is, this is something that you dedicate your life to developing. This is something that you make your life's mission. You can beg God in your heart. This is what I want. There's so many things in this world that I could want, but this is my desire. I want to see like those dear to you see. I want to see this with the same kind of vision that you have. I want my heart to be aligned with your heart in seeing every living being as connected to you. And the way that you love them, I also want to love them. Right? It's a very noble aspiration, but it doesn't come cheap. But Kirtan is the perfect place to cultivate it. Thank you for such a nice question. Okay, people. We're looking for more questions. At least one to keep us going. I know, good to see you again. I know Joey always has some good questions. No? Today? Yes? Yeah.
Yeah, say, do you mind explaining the idea of impersonal Brahman again versus personal Brahman? I feel like I'm still a little unclear from this, so forgive me if you feel like you've said it a few times. You certainly have, but I just need it to sink in a little bit harder, so thank you.
And I anticipate speaking about this tomorrow in our final class tomorrow morning, but we can always talk about this. The great sage Vyasadeva wanted to clarify his teachings. He saw that there's confusion about them, and a lot of the confusion lies around the question that you're asking. Is God a person? Does God have form? Or Because doesn't form indicate limitation? And isn't limitation contrary to the concept of the Supreme or the Absolute or God? We would think that God is not limited by form. Form has a beginning and it has an end. So the Supreme must be formless. That's a logical conclusion to come to. But there's another way you can look at it too. Well, if the Supreme didn't have form, then that's a limitation, right? If the Supreme was missing form, if form was something that the Supreme did not possess, well, then it seems like the Supreme is limited. So this becomes a confusing idea. And so in order to clarify, Vyasa tells a story in the text where he wants to clarify everything, the Srimad Bhagavatam. And there he has a gathering of sages with different opinions on this, asking questions to try to understand it, to a deeply self-realized sage named Sutta Goswami. And Sutta Goswami, in the course of their conversation, says that the duties that one does in life, the Vedic duties, the dharmas that we do, they should never be done for material gain. If you see them as a path to material gain, you're not understanding their potential. They should be done as a way of inquiring into the absolute truth. And the absolute truth means the Supreme, God, that from which everything else comes. Do your dharmas in this world as a way of inquiring into the absolute truth. So then the next logical question from the sages would be, well, what is the absolute truth? Is the absolute truth an energy, formless energy with no attributes? Or is the absolute truth a person with form and with attributes, with qualities? Logical question. So the way that that's answered is in one of the most important verses in all of the Vedic literature. Sutta Goswami says, Vedanti tattva vidas tattvam yajganam advayam brahmeti paramatmeti bhagavan iti shabdite. This is Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 1, Chapter 2, text number 11. And here he says that Vedanti tattva vidas, the tattva vidas, those who have seen the truth, similar to the verse we're reading from the Bhagavad Gita, they understand this non-dual spiritual substance as manifesting in three features. So it's one supreme absolute truth, one divine entity, but that you can know on three different levels of revelation. One is called Brahman, which in this case, and the word Brahman is a big word and it can be used to indicate different things, but commonly it's been speaking about the non-personal energy, the attributeless spiritual energy, right? Brahman. Next way that supreme absolute truth can be perceived and understood and experienced is Paramatma. Yeah, the great soul, you could say, the supreme Atma, the supreme soul. Param Atma. Paramatma means the all-pervasive aspect of the Supreme that operates within the material realm. So there's, within the heart of every living being, this Paramatma exists, conscious, right? Form of Vishnu. But also even within every atom within the universe, this Paramatma is there. This is the divine intelligence that ties everything together, Paramatma. Okay, so that's the second way God can be doing it. And that Paramatma is within the heart. Commonly the Ashtanga yogis, commonly the Jnana yogis are trying to understand the Brahman through a philosophical process of eliminating everything that's not absolute. In the end, you come to an emptiness, you could say, just a spiritual light, you could say, right? Attributeless light. Commonly the yogis, like the Ashtanga yogis, they're going off to be alone to practice internal meditation so that they can connect with the Paramatma within their heart. But then there's Bhagavan. Bhagavan is the third, and Bhagavan is the all-encompassing one, right? If we went through these three, and someday I'm going to come up with, by the time I come back here next year, I'm going to come up with another analogy. But this is the one that I'm using for now. But it's almost like Well, let's use a softer analogy. I might show part of myself to you, and to someone that I know more intimately, I might show more of myself. And to someone that I know very intimately, I might show my whole self. Understand? And so the Brahman energy, that is Krishna. That is Bhagavan Sri Krishna holding back, restrained of all of his personal attributes. It is the same spirit, the same energy, the same absolute truth, the same source of everything, minus the personal attributes. So it is eternal energy. It is the basis of all existence, in that it is the supreme. But it is the supreme not showing you any of its attributes. And that is going to be very welcome. That is going to be very attractive to someone who's become convinced that attributes and individual personal existence is the cause of pain and suffering, right? And that's not an illogical conclusion to come to, right? But Bhagavatam is saying, no, that's not the end. In the Bhagavad Gita, there's an interesting passage in Bhagavad Gita. The 14th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita is about the three modes of material nature, the energies that this material world is composed of, and the influence of each of the three has on a person. So the chapter just goes right through these different energies and how they manifest in this world, and how they bind one in this world, how they influence and bind one in this world. So that's essentially the most of the chapter. Towards the end of the chapter, Arjuna says to Krishna, what is the person like who's transcended this energy, transcended these three modes of material nature? And then he says, and how does one transcend? Okay? And so then Krishna describes what's called Brahman realization, right? Realization, when one's realized Brahman, when one's realized that eternality, how does it manifest in how they move through this world, right? So towards the end of the chapter, Krishna begins to answer these two questions. Describe the person who's achieved this Brahman realization, and then tell me, how do they get there? How do they achieve it? And so he begins to speak a lot about what we call, not samadarshana, like we said before, but samatvam, even-mindedness. No matter what is changing in this world, their mind remains even. It may be hot one day and cold the next. They're not excited one day and disappointed the next. There may be people saying nice things about them one moment, and then people saying not so nice. They're not thrilled and pleased and so happy to hear someone say nice things, and then really upset and disturbed and angry when someone's saying not so nice things. Because they realize the distinction between matter and spirit. They know that the nature of matter is that it's always fluctuating. So if it's hot today, it's going to be cold tomorrow. If people are saying nice things about me today, I can count on not nice things coming around tomorrow. I know that the nature of matter is always shifting. I've detached myself from that by going within and realizing my own spiritual nature, that I am Brahman, I am unchanging. So no matter what's changing externally, it doesn't really matter to me. Just like, even we in a something similar to that. If we have a good, loving relationships at home, then if we don't have the most, perfect dealings outside the home, it doesn't disturb us so much because we've got something, that's steady, right? So on a much more complete level, the yogi has something that's steady in experiencing their own true nature, which is Brahman, right? Which is spiritual, which is eternal. So Krishna speaks a lot about this even-mindedness when he describes one who's achieved Brahman realization. And then he describes how one achieves it. Now you might think that if this Brahman is evenness, then maybe the yogi meditates on the non-personal feature of God to achieve that evenness, right? The personal feature, if you look at the personal feature, like Krishna, it seems uneven. It seems that things are changing in his world all the time. There's he's having he's with the gopis, then he's without them. The gopis are happy with him, then they're upset with him. He's getting in arguments, he's getting in fights, he's getting in all kinds of what appears to be like the dealings of the material realm. So it would seem like one wouldn't meditate on that. One should meditate on the oneness, the Brahman, the non-personal feature of the Supreme. But Krishna says, nope. Do you have the 14th chapter up by any chance? Yeah. Very famous verse, actually. 1826. I'm sorry, 1426. Mamcha yo vyabhicharena bhakti yogena sevate sagunan samatitaitan brahma bhuyaya kalpate. He says, one who engages in full bhakti, unfailing in all circumstances, at once transcends the three modes of material nature and comes to the level of Brahman. Sounds a bit illogical because, again, why would I meditate on this apparently unsteady, constantly changing? Bhakti yoga is the yoga of love. Love implies duality. Duality seems to imply conflict and tension and trouble and lack of peace. Why wouldn't I meditate on the non-personal feature? But Krishna recommends, no, you meditate on the personal feature. You do bhakti yoga. And then in the next verse he says, Brahmano hi pratishtaham. I am the basis of the Brahman. So if you understand me, if you connect with me, everything that's there in Brahman you get. You get the evenness. You get the freedom from the ups and downs of the material realm. Like that. So he recommends bhakti. So what is that Brahman? That non-personal energy? You see, one example, there's a verse in the Vedas, in the Upanishads. It's a very famous aphorism. Sarva kalvidam Brahma. It means everything is Brahman. Now, how do we make sense of that? There's two ways that it's looked at. There's the way that the non-dualists or the impersonalists, they say that this doesn't exist. Everything is Brahman. This appears not to be Brahman, therefore it's non-existent. It's illusion. It's not true. It's unreal. They'll say, Brahma Satyam Jaga Mithya, that Brahman is real and this world is unreal. So everything is Brahman, this world doesn't exist. That's one way to approach it, right? Make sense? And another way to approach it is the way that the Bhakti yogis approach it. When they recognize this Sarva Kalvidam Brahma, they say that it is everything is the energy of the Pada Brahman, Sri Krishna. And he has his ability to transform the same spiritual energy in multifarious ways. Sometimes the example is used as like an electrician can do. You have one energy of electricity, but if you know how to manipulate that energy, the same energy can manifest as heat or as refrigeration. It can make things hotter or it can make things cold. Same energy, but the master can manifest it in different ways. So the Bhakti yogis say Sri Krishna is the Pada Brahman. He has multifarious energies. Parasya Shaktir Vivadaya Vashruyate. They manifest in all different sorts of ways. One of them is the non-personal Brahman. Right? That's his one way of manifesting his energy. He'll manifest Brahman in other ways as well. The jiva, the self, is Brahman. And ultimately, even this material realm, it's actually eternal energy. It may be always shifting. And that's because he's manifested it that way. But the energy itself is eternal. So it's all Brahman. But he's manifesting Brahman in different ways. Okay, but commonly when we say the word Brahman, we're talking about the non-personal feature. It's just one feature of him. It's him not showing his personal. It's if you need to connect to the spirit, but you have a resistance to form or to personhood or to individuality, then this feature of the Supreme, you can connect to it. It's there for you. It's available for you. But it's not the end. And this becomes explained in Srimad Bhagavatam, and we may speak about that tomorrow, but there's several great Brahmavadis, people who had achieved this deep Brahman realization. Most respected amongst them are the 4 Kumaras, these 4 little boys, right? Little boys in terms of their body because they're mystic yogis, but they're actually the oldest of beings in the universe practically. And they decide that they don't want to become progenitors and engage in this world. They want to meditate on the one, and they've achieved this Brahman realization. They're beyond the ups and downs of this world. But when they encounter the form of Vishnu, something transforms in them. And could you pull up that chapter? Look at that. You got it? Yeah. I'm going to read from this chapter right now. Everybody ready? A little Srimad Bhagavatam. It's such a fascinating passage that here these great Brahman realized souls in the forms of little children, and they encounter the form of Vishnu, and they have a divine experience. This is how the awakening is described. When the breeze carrying the aroma of tulsi leaves from the toes of the lotus feet of the personality Godhead entered the nostrils of those sages, they experienced a change, both in body and in mind, even though they were attached to the impersonal Brahman understanding. So they were already on this liberated platform of Brahman realization, but form, aroma of the Supreme, of spiritual form, spiritual aroma, when they connected with it, there was a change in their body. They could feel symptoms in their body, and there was a change in mind. There's something more. This is Brahman, but it's more beautiful. It's more personal. There's feelings that I'm feeling that are spiritual feelings. They're not the feelings, the love of the material realm, which is based on illusion. This is a different kind of love. It's a love in transcendence. They're experiencing it now. And let me read to you what they begin to speak. So important. The Lord's beautiful face appeared to them like the inside of a blue lotus, and the Lord's smile appeared to be a blossoming jasmine flower. After seeing the face of the Lord, the sages were fully satisfied. And when they wanted to see him further, they looked upon the nails of his lotus feet, which resembled rubies. Thus they viewed the Lord's transcendental body again and again. And so they finally achieved meditation on the Lord's personal feature. Okay? So they had this evenness of mind and this transcendent awareness. But this drew them in a new way, the form. This is the form of the Lord which is meditated upon by the followers of the yoga process, and it is pleasing to the yogis in meditation. It is not imaginary, but factual, right? It's form, but it's not temporary. It's not. It's real. It's eternal, as proved by great yogis. The Lord is full in 8 kinds of achievement, but for others these achievements are not possible in full perfection. He has full. We can go down the list of these. I won't do it now, but he's got these attributes, qualities. The Kumaras said, now they speak, "Our dear Lord, you are not manifested to rascals, even though you are seated within the heart of everyone. But as far as we are concerned, we see you face to face, although you are unlimited," right? You're unlimited, meaning there's no limit to you. You are spiritual. Spiritual means unlimited, but you have a face. If you didn't have a face, you'd be limited, right? But you have a face and you have non-personal energy. You have it all, right? The statements we have heard about you from our father Brahma through the years have now been actually realized by your kind appearance. We know that you are the Supreme Absolute Truth, the personality of Godhead who manifests in his transcendental form in the uncontaminated mode of pure goodness. This transcendental eternal form of your personality can be understood only by your mercy, through unflinching bhakti, by great sages whose hearts have been purified in the devotional way. Persons who are very expert and most intelligent in understanding things as they are, engage in hearing narrations of the auspicious activities and pastimes of the Lord, which are worth chanting and worth hearing. Such persons do not care even for the highest material benediction, namely liberation, to say nothing of other less important benedictions like the material happiness of the heavenly kingdom. Okay. So they go on, but you see what Vyasa is doing is he's showing, I'm going to show you that the highest meditators on Brahman, they've achieved Brahman realization. They know the distinction between matter and spirit. And when they experience in that pure state of awareness, when they experience the form of God as a person, they have still more feelings, spiritual feelings, increased. Their experience goes to the next level. And then they begin to speak about that, how this form is eternal, how it's unlimited, how the feelings that they have are the feelings that are experienced by the yogis who take it to the next level. Now, you're never going to read anywhere in Vyasa's literature about someone who's achieved that, and then they reject that for the non-personal. It's never going that direction. It's always going up the ladder, right? The same question is asked about Shukadeva Goswami. Why was Shukadeva Goswami the most transcendental yogi? That Brahmavadi who was completely beyond, completely aloof from anything material. Why did he take interest in hearing the stories about Krishna and the gopis and the residents of Vrindavan? Isn't that a step down for him? No. It's a step up. It's a step up. Because this isn't material romance. This isn't material love that he's hearing about. It's spiritual love, right? There's material relationship, then there's emptiness, then there's spiritual relationship. And so the Brahmavadis go beyond the material relationship and they find peace. But there's still another realm of spiritual engagement in love, in divine love. That's why I think I asked you earlier, maybe on the first night that you're here, what's the opposite of being $1 million in debt, right? Some might say it's being free of the debt, but that's actually just the neutral state. The real opposite of it, the mirror opposite of it, the complete opposite of it would be to own $1 million. And so the opposite of the relationships of this world is the relationships of the spiritual realm. And Brahman is the in-between. It's free from all of the problems of the material realm, but it's empty of all the beauty of the spiritual realm. It's a neutral state according to Vyasa. Makes sense? Okay. Thank you very much. Yes.
I'm trying really hard to understand this. So why don't jnana yogis want to take the next step to practice bhakti then? But they don't actually think that there is another step. They think they're at the ultimate. And is it maybe to do because that it involves feelings and they want to renounce their feelings?
In the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says, Ye yata mam prapadyante tangs tataiva bhajam yaham. As one surrenders unto me, I reciprocate accordingly. So if one wants spirit, if one wants moksha, if one wants freedom and connection to the divine, but they don't want person, the ontological idea, the idea that ontologically there is a being that is not only superior to me, but that I'm dependent on, and not only temporarily dependent on, but eternally dependent on. That thought can create hesitation in the mind and the heart of one. One might think, I've had so much experience in this world of trouble in relationship. My belief, they're the ones that believe that the opposite of being $1 million in debt is to be free of debt. The opposite of the sufferings of this world is to be free of suffering. So then the descriptions of Krishna's pastimes to them sound like material engagement. And so that doesn't interest them. So they want the oneness. They want to feel the oneness. They want to feel the peace. And they're hesitant to. No, commonly they don't. We see that there's two different types. One is called Brahmavadi. Brahmavadi means I'm interested in the Brahman. I'm not opposed to the form. I'm not speaking out against the form. And then there's Mayavadi. Mayavadi means I'm saying any kind of form is Maya. Mayavadi. So the one is more open and one is more closed. Right? So in any case, Krishna is saying, everyone's on my path in all respects. Yeyatam mam prapadyante tangs tataiva bhajamyaham mama vart manu vartante manusha parthasarvisha mama vart manu vartante. Everyone's on my path in one way or another. They may be trying to connect with me through my material energy. They may be trying to connect with me through my non-personal spiritual energy. They may be trying to connect to me through as a person. However they approach me, I don't force them. As they approach me, I reciprocate accordingly. Like that. So if that's not what you want, then that's not what you'll get. And if you're focused on the material realm, he's like saying, I have devas that will give you material boons. Right? If you want the peace, non-personal peace, he can grant that. But he's always waiting. Like that two birds on the branch. This is described in the Upanishads. There's two birds sitting on the same branch. One is the Atma, one is the Paramatma. Right? And the one bird, that's us. They're trying to taste the fruits of the trees, sometimes sweet, sometimes bitter. And the other bird, God in the heart, is waiting for us to turn back. And so he's waiting for that moment. You know, even the non-personal Brahman. Bhagavatam is going to say that those that achieve that, they think they've achieved liberation. But he says, but they're on the mano-retaina. They're still on the chariot of the mind. And eventually they generally come back down. And occasionally they go up. But more common they come back down. And once Prabhupada was asked this question, why do they come back down? If they've achieved this peace, this very deep peace, why do they come back down into the material realm? And do you know what he said? He said, because they become lonely. And that's why I use this analogy, like say you're living in the stress of business life and big city life and tension and conflict and competition, and the pressure gets to be too much, right? Sometimes people feel, I can't take this anymore. I need a vacation. And so they take their money and they spend it and they buy a ticket to the Bahamas. And they're on some private island, you know, out in the middle of the ocean. There's nobody to bother them anymore. There's just peace. It's so nice. It's such a relief. It just feels so good. But after some time, you're going to begin to feel lonely out on that island. And what seems like what was such a relief and was such peace, eventually begins to feel like torture. I'm stuck out here all alone. Right? They have movies about that, right? What was the movie called where they had the Castaway, right? A man's living alone on an island. There's nobody else there. So what does he do? He takes a volleyball and he draws a face on it. He gives it a name. And because he's lonely. Because it's natural. It's our very nature. If we go deep down to the deepest dharma of the self, the deepest essence of the self, what are we made for? What is our deepest purpose? It's to love. And love has an object and a subject, right? And so it's in us, right? But Krishna's not going to force it. If that's not what you want, if it's not what you're ready for, he'll reciprocate with you wherever you want. If you want the things of this world, he can grant that. If you want the non-personal mukti, that's available. But he's still waiting for when you're going to turn back to him. Do you have questions? Yes.
Thank you. A little bit more basic, Hare Krishna. You mentioned of karma, Brahma and Brahmana. Brahma and Brahmana. Can you break down the words so we understand the meaning of it better?
So, the word Brahma, or we might say Brahman, refers to the spiritual energy. in general. A Brahmana is just it's describing a person who has certain qualities, and based on those qualities, they play a certain role in society. So within society, this is what it became warped as what people call the caste system. Because we generally have a way of taking something that's good and messing it up. And so these ancient texts speak of recognizing different qualities in different people and building in ethics to the roles that they play. Right? Like right now, say in the United States, any person can run for president, and if they get enough votes, they can win. Right? They don't necessarily have to have any training. Like, let's say in diplomacy. Wouldn't that be important that a world leader have like some diplomatic know-how and be familiar with the history of diplomacy, what works, what doesn't, what is wise, what is unwise? You don't have to have any of that. You can be a host of a reality television show and get enough votes to become the president of the United States, right? Wouldn't it be good if our leaders from their youth were trained in ethics, were trained in diplomacy? Really, like for instance, maybe you know this even, but if you go to books like the Panchatantra, right? These are like the children's books, right? Like Aesop's fables were based on the Panchatantra of ancient India. And these are books that were taught to the kings when they were little boys so that they could understand about diplomacy. Like, for instance, if you're having trouble with a hostile enemy, there are 4 different ways to try to curb their hostility, right? And only the last one is danda, right? Where you actually engage in like physical conflict. But there are like 3 different levels of ways that you're meant to try to curb the hostility. But our leaders haven't even begun to learn these kind of things, right? So the idea here was that they would say that there are 3 kind of leaders in society, and then there are the employees. Leaders are independent. Nobody's paying them a paycheck. So they're the Vaishyas. They're the business leaders. Today we call them job creators, right? And then we have the political leaders of like the Justice Department, the people that are ruling, right? Nobody gives them a paycheck. They tax the citizens, and they earn a living in that way. And then there are the Brahmanas, the spiritual leaders. The Brahmanas don't get a paycheck from anyone either. They live on donations, and therefore they have to be very detached, right? The Brahmana is the person who is absorbed in Brahman. Because we were talking about this at the very beginning, those of you that were here at the beginning, because they're fixed in what's eternal, the shifts of this world cause them no fear. So they can be happy living in a hut, living in a very simple condition. They don't need to feel, I need a steady paycheck. Otherwise, they're kind of fully dependent on God because of their absorption in Brahman, because of their faith in Scripture. They're at peace. And what excites them. I'll tell you a story, and you can probably relate to this. I had a friend, a sannyasi, right? A renunciate, wears a saffron cloth, carries the stick. He was riding on a train in India. And across from him in the berth was an older man, and then his son, middle-aged son. And the middle-aged son he had some kind of injury, like in a cast and sling or something like this. And so they were having their discussion, and always the sannyasi is always shown some respect, by gentlemen. And they were having their conversation. Then eventually my friend asked, how did you become injured like this? And he said, oh, it was nothing important like this. And his father said, no, you should tell him. And the man said, no, he was being modest. He said, no, it's not important. He said, no, you should tell them. Finally, his father, and my friend said, I really want to hear, tell me. So he told his story. And his story was that he was a high-ranking man in the Indian Army. And one night, he has his family in the car, and they're driving down a road, and there was a military roadblock. And so because he was a high-ranking Army officer, he said, why is this roadblock here and what is going on? And so the lower ranking troops said, in that house over there are terrorists. They've taken hostages in that home, and they're inside there right now. And his response was, give me a gun, right? Give me a gun. So they armed him, and he, on his own, broke into the house, killed the terrorists, freed the hostages, and was shot and injured in the course of this rescue. So my friend said to him, how can you do that? Right? How could you have your family sitting in the car, you put your life on the line, and you risk everything. And he said, Swamiji, just like these books that you study, these texts, this is your life, right? That's not my life. This is my life, right? And it was just a simple way of saying we have different mentalities. He had the ruler, the warrior, they have this fearlessness, and they have a kind of a heroic attitude, right? They're willing to risk their life to protect others. The Brahmana is living very simple. He doesn't even have the whole family like this person does. But he has this wisdom. Wisdom is what inspires him. Wisdom is what excites him, like that, right? So you have the spiritual leaders. Now the spiritual leaders, they're the teachers. They're supposed to be educating the business leaders, as well as the military or the rulers, right? Let's take a business leader, right? Nowadays you have these big billionaires, right? And if one billionaire is sitting at a table with 5 other billionaires, and the first billionaire is worth $2 billion, more money than you could ever know how to spend. But the other one is worth 10 billion, 15 billion, 30 billion, and 60 billion dollars. Then the billionaire that's worth 2 billion is feeling insecure, insignificant, right? And he's thinking, when I come back next year, I'm not going to be just at 2 billion. I'm going to climb the ladder, right? And I'm going to do what I have to do to get there, right? And in order to get there, he might have to become more cruel. He might have to become give less benefits to his workers. He might have to not follow all the ecological regulations to preserve the earth. He might start doing things that are going to accrue bad karma for him. And what he needs is a spiritual leader, a detached. You see, the Brahmana, because nobody gives them a paycheck, because they're so detached, they can always speak the truth. Once someone's giving them a paycheck every month, now they have to speak according to the dictates of that person. They can't say all the truth anymore. But because they're totally detached, now they can say the truth. And they can sit down with this business leader and say, you've made a measure of success, how much money you make. That shouldn't be your measure. Using that measure is going to just cause you suffering. Your measure of success should be, how well do I care for others? How generous can I be, right? How kind and generous? How many people can I support? So go ahead, go out and make your billions. There's nothing wrong with that. But the question is, how do you use it? Your first priority should be, how do I care for my own workers? Are they living well? Can they have a life where they can have enough peace and security that they can pursue their spiritual lives without being in a constant state of pressure and anxiety? Are you caring for them? If you start to think like that, if you don't think like that, everyone's going to hate you. Even your own family is not going to like you. And you're going to accrue the suffering that you're causing all these people. You're going to accrue that, and you're going to have to experience it all in your future lives. You're building yourself a life of misery. Think about it this way. Think about, yes, I've got this aptitude. I've got this intelligence and this vision to make money in the world. Use it. But use it to care for others. And you're going to find that you're going to be engaged in your nature, but you're going to actually become much happier this way. And then he's got to have the same kind of conversation with a political leader, Also kind of like temper their passions and help them understand what real success looks like. Right? That's going to come from the more peaceful mind. And so that's the Brahmana. That's the business of the Brahmana. They've developed through their knowledge. They've understood Brahman. They've understood spiritual energy. They've disconnected themselves from the ups and downs of this world. They've got a depth of wisdom. And they have the freedom to share it because they're not under anyone's thumb. That's a Brahman. Is that okay? Yes.
Haribo, very beautifully put together when you explain Brahmana, Vaishya, and Kshatriya. And this probably will bring a little bit of controversial topic. I wanna understand your understanding about śūdras. And in our Sanatana Dharma, or how I was brought up, it's always Brahmana, Vaishya, Kshatriya, and Shudra, even though I see all of it as equal.
We must see it as equal. In other words, the soul in these different bodies is equal. But for the smooth operation of society, that business leader has to say, the Brahmana is superior to me. Why? Because of his wisdom, because of his detachment. I accept. So the powerful political, imagine if all of our political leaders and all our business leaders accepted the wisdom of very deeply spiritual, detached, simple people, leaders, right? Spiritual leaders. But they don't. But they need to see this person I submit to. I submit to their wisdom. So similarly, the Sudra is submitting. Once Sudras means all the employees, the people that someone pays them. If someone's paying you, signing a paycheck for you once a month, that's Sudra. But it's not speaking to your, it's not saying that you are a worse person. And really, the real question is, where are we spiritually? Someone may be an employee, a common worker even, but have the purest devotional heart. So then actually they're superior to Brahmana, right? Ultimately, Vaishnava is this fully realized devotion. Wherever we see it, that's the highest thing, right? This realization about 500 years ago, in many of the different areas of India, it became a prominent theme. If you look, like in Maharashtra, there's Tukaram. In Bengal, there's Haridas Thakur. Say in Rajasthan, you have Mirabai, right? You're born Kshatriya family, but spiritually exalted. Wherever we see the spiritual exaltation, this is what Bhagavatam teaches, actually. Right? We see even Vritrasura, born in the Asura lineage. His devotion is greater than that of Indra, and he becomes exalted, right? Prahlad, born in demon family, Asura family, becomes the greatest devotee, right? The wives of the Brahmanas, simple, untrained in ritual, untrained in mantra, untrained in shastra, their realization, when Krishna's friends approached the ritualistic Brahmanas and asked them, Krishna's hungry, could you give him some food? Get these boys out. They become proud because of their position. When they go to the wives of those Brahmanas, who have none of that training, but they have appreciation for love for Krishna, they immediately respond to his call. And then the Brahmanas say, we've missed the point. Look, right? All of this mantra, all of this austerity, all of this Vedic study, it's all to connect us with God. But we've lost, there's a saying in English, you can't see the forest because of the trees, right? What's right in front of you, you miss it. Krishna himself approached them and they rejected him because they're doing their important ritual. The whole ritual is to connect you with him, right? Now, they say, but our wives saw this. They didn't have our training. They don't know the mantras. They don't know the shastra. They haven't practiced the austerities. But when Krishna called, they were there with a heart full of love. They say, to hell with our mantras, to hell with our austerities, to hell with all our Vedic study. We've missed the whole point. Like this. So Bhagavatam is teaching this. So Shudra can mean many things. There's all different varieties, from the most common laborer to like a very advanced artist. Or in so many ways. There's so many varieties. We can understand We can embrace the ethics within each role and learn to operate in a very smooth way where there's the whole point to this Varnashram Dharma is to counteract oppression. Right? It's especially about training the leaders so that they get a clear mind that I will not benefit from acting in an oppressive way, whether I'm a business leader, a military leader, or a spiritual leader. Right? But it all gets warped in this world. And then we begin to look down and become proud and this and that. You meet a lot of Brahmanas in these temples. They don't have the knowledge. They don't have the detachment. They're just made a business out of showing the deity. So that's there too. You get all kinds. Ultimately, what's going to be important is the devotional heart. Right? Doesn't matter. Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vaishya, Shudra, Brahmachari, Grihastha, Vanaprastha, Sannyasa. It doesn't matter. Old, young, black, white, man, woman. Wherever we see devotion, that's the aspiration of all of us, and we show respect to that. We show respect to every living being. If we don't learn that, we get nowhere in spiritual life. Then we get all the externals, the external position, the external details, whether it's Varnashram Dharma, whether it's different stages of life, the clothes we wear, the rituals that we practice. They all have a purpose, right? What is it? The verse is slipping my mind right now. There's a verse that says that always remember Vishnu, never forget. Smartavya satatam Vishnur, Vishvartam no najatu chit. Always remember Krishna, always remember Vishnu, never forget him. Sarve vidi nashedasyor, etior eva kinkara. You can take all of the rules and regulations of the yoga, Shastra, Vedanta, take it all. All of them are servants of this one. Always remember God, right? If we're doing but what we do is because we're not so evolved, we get caught up in all the externals. And we become proud of that we do this and others don't do it as well as me, and we start to look down on people. We miss the whole point, right? The whole point is that I'm always, and if I'm always remembering Krishna, then I'm seeing Krishna everywhere. I'm seeing Krishna in the heart of every living being. And if I'm seeing Krishna's heart in the heart of every living being, then my mind never becomes degraded. I never act with hostility towards any of his parts and parcels, to any of the jiva souls that are all his. I can't see that way because I'm always remembering him. Right? Just like when we do sometimes, we grow up and we become a teenager and we start to act foolish, do foolish things, go out, get drunk, do something stupid. We're forgetting our parents. We're forgetting the good examples that we had in life. But if we're remembering it, we can't act stupid like that. It's only we need to forget these things. If we're remembering God all the time, smartavya satatam Vishnu. Krishna says 13th chapter. Do you have 13th chapter there? Krishna speaks about when one sees God in the heart of every living being. When one realizes God within their own heart and sees God within every living being. And he describes the vision of that person. One who sees the super soul, Paramatma, accompanying the individual soul in all bodies, and who understands that neither the soul nor the super soul within the destructible body is ever destroyed, that person actually sees. Everybody else is blind. It's only that person that really sees. One who sees the super soul equally present everywhere in every living being does not degrade himself by his mind. Thus, he approaches the transcendental destination. You see? When you're seeing God in everyone, your mind does not become degraded. Feeling that presence, seeing that presence, you have to show respect to everyone. So Varnashram Dharma, this has its value. But if we miss the point, you may as well just throw it all out because it won't help anyone, right? But if you understand the point, it can be very helpful for us living a very harmonious life together, and cultivating our spiritual lives together. Yes.
Definitely a very beautiful interpretation of those, and just how you mentioned the definition of them, and trying to see the interconnection between them. I see a Shudra can be a Brahmana, or a Vaishya, or a Kshatriya. And if my understanding is correct, why do we even have labels in the first place? Because there are a couple of experiences that I have had in the past. I used to live in the Canadian Arctic, and Canadian Arctic, the Yukon up north. And I was having a very interesting conversation with one of the First Nations elder, and he mentioned to me his approach towards meeting other people or talking to them is as if he's approaching a book. When you read a book, you get so involved that nothing else bothers you or you don't get distracted. And that is the kind of attention he wants to give to the people. And that really changed my perspective towards how I approach humans as well. And it is the same point of how you brought it up, that when we meet people, we want to have this openness towards everybody. But it's also what is said is be non-judgmental when you look at different people. Why is being non-judgmental so hard? No matter how much we say, oh yeah, I'm just being super non-judgmental, you're judging right there. I don't want to judge, but open for you.
This comes down to the most basic spiritual information, that we are a spark of spirit, eternal, but we're engaging with the world through a material mind. And the mind is like a computer that's been programmed in particular ways. It's been programmed to find certain things pleasant, certain things unpleasant. This will make me happy, this won't. It's attachment and aversion, right? There's an application within the computer of our mind called the manas. And it's programmed to respond to certain externals as pleasing and certain as unpleasing. And it's an impulsive, instant reaction like that, right? So we've been programmed to say, I like people that look like this. I don't like people that look like that, right? I like people that are from here, and I don't like people that are from here. It's all programming in the mind. The yogi has to counter that programming with knowledge. The yogi has to confront that through knowledge. It's knowledge which destroys that ignorance. As long as we're living at the dictation of the programming in the mind, we're always going to be stuck. And we're always going to be favoring that which the mind is saying is pleasant. And what's the opposite of favoring? Rejecting that which the mind has been programmed to say is unfavorable, like that. That's where we're stuck. You know, sometimes I use the example like if we had a computer and you connected a camera to the computer and you connected a speaker to the computer. And then you program the computer that when you flash a red light in front of the camera, that the computer responds with a recorded human voice that says, I like red. We could do that, yes? And then we could go further and program the computer that when I flash a blue light in front of the camera, the computer responds by saying, I don't like blue. We could do that as well, yes? And so the computer, it's not that the computer likes or dislikes red or blue. The computer is just programmed to make an instant response. We have minds that are programmed like that. You know, I like Indians, I don't like Pakistanis, right? And because that programming is there, we don't take the time to set that aside. We respond with that repulsive reaction, and we don't take the time to get to know the soul, right? So we should have that openness. We should maintain that. We do that through, again, knowledge counteracts ignorance, right? So the knowledge of the spirit should help us overcome that kind of ignorance. But it is a challenge. We're convinced that this will make me happy and this won't. And we stay trapped in cycles of this kind of external thinking. I think we're out of time, everybody. It's been such a wonderful evening with you. I'm sorry. You can ask me later. Save it for tomorrow night. We have one more night. Everyone, Yogi True, was he here? Is he still here? Yes. Tomorrow morning? Tomorrow morning at 8 a.m. For the last time, for some time, Yogi True will be teaching yoga and asana at 8 a.m. here. And from 9 until 10, I'll be doing more like Vedanta talks. Please join us for the last of the festival. I'll be here again tomorrow night. That'll be the last time in the festival. Beginning on Tuesday, right in the very nearby area, the devotees at Bhakti Yoga Rishikesh are hosting a 6-day Bhakti Yoga immersion, where if you want to learn the practices, not just hear about it, but learn the practices, you can take part in that. I'll be taking part of it. Yogi True will be taking part of it. There's a little table set up right over here. You can wander over there and find out more about it. And of course, if you want to get more of these talks that I've been doing all along, they're all posted publicly, and Gabriella here can connect you with that. Please take part in more Kirtan and let us cultivate this deeper spiritual vision together in Kirtan, as well as through honoring the Lord's delicious prasadam. And I hope to see you tomorrow morning, tomorrow evening. Thank you all so very much. Hari Om Tat Sat.